Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Episode 343, recorded for February 17th, 2026. AWS CloudWatch finally learns to hit snooze. Good evening, Matt and Ryan. How you guys doing?
I want to be snoozing right now.
I would love to be snoozing. I spent the weekend in Vegas and was up way too late gambling multiple days, but had a good time. So
nice.
This morning I was definitely hating myself. I was like, why do I do this to myself? I'm over 40 now. I can't get this kind of, not in my 20s. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
Well, we have a couple of cool stories this week. So first up, if you've updated Notepad recently, or you probably have a virus. So Microsoft, which we would consider Notepad to be fully mature until AI came along, has decided they need to be modernized. And by modernizing, they introduced CVE 2026-20841, which is a vulnerability in the new markdown support feature that allows malicious links and files to execute remote code. Seems like a problem. And the flaw has apparently been patched as of February 2026. So if you have not upgraded on your Windows Update, do that ASAP. So you can always add features, but you're always adding security trade-offs. So keep that in mind. The vulnerability exploits Notepad's markdown and rendering capability, which Microsoft added in May to support lightweight markup language formatting. And when Notepad opens a specifically crafted markdown file, embedded malicious links can trigger the unverified protocol, which it seems like a pretty obvious, duh.
Yeah.
Like anytime I'm putting a URL processor in something, I'm always wrapping it in a lot of protection. This incident raises questions about feature bloat in core Windows utilities, particularly as Microsoft continues adding network-dependent capabilities like AI-powered text writing to Notepad, which does not need that. Security researchers are debating whether basic text editors should have network functionality at all, given the expanded attack surfaces. And the vulnerability demonstrates how modernization efforts can introduce security risks in previously low-risk applications. Organizations using Windows need to ensure their systems receive the February 2026 update, as I mentioned.
I'm just confused why they didn't use Copilot on their pull requests in order to identify this as a potential bug. I feel like it should have found it. Just saying.
Yeah. It is, it's one of those things. I kind of agree with the sentiment of why does my Notepad really need to make web calls?
The answer is it doesn't, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It should be simple.
Yeah. I mean, I understand how, you make a mistake in the rendering, and I can see how, that's just sort of it seems obvious in retrospect, but the other bits I'm a little less excited by. But I don't use Notepad a whole lot. I don't use a lot of Windows ecosystem in general. So hopefully there hasn't been a whole lot of markdown usage in Notepad in the last, 6 months? A little longer?
I mean, the vulnerability might have been there. It doesn't mean it was exploited. That's always the key difference between found vulnerability versus actually actively out in the wild. So
yeah.
Well, in a really interesting article this week, Chrome is apparently introducing WebMCP, which is going to be a standardized protocol that lets websites expose structured tools and actions directly to AI agents, eliminating the need for agents to parse raw HTML and DOM elements. This addresses a key reliability problem in agentic workflows where AI agents currently struggle with inconsistent web interactions. The protocol offers two interaction modes, a declarative API for simple HTML form-based actions and an imperative API for complex JavaScript-driven workflows. This dual approach lets websites define exactly how agents should interact with features like booking systems, support ticket forms, and checkout processes. Early use cases focus on high-value transactional workflows, including e-commerce product configuration, travel booking with complex filtering requirements, and automated customer support ticket creation with technical details. These scenarios benefit most from structured interactions versus unreliable DOM manipulations. The early preview program requires sign-up for access to documentation and demos, indicating this is still in experimental stages. Developers interested in making their sites agent-ready will need to implement these new APIs to participate in the agentic web ecosystem Chrome is building out. And this is their attempt to standardize how AI agents interact with websites before the market fragments with competing approaches, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this as neat, because it is sort of one of those things. A lot of the AI interactions are do a whole bunch of research or go, configure, like travel sites, request tickets, find tickets, that kind of thing. So it makes a lot of sense and why they want to standardize on a specific protocol. But I can't help but feel like this is the beginning of the end of human interaction, right? Where it's they're going to have, it's a, AI agent to agent specific protocol, that'll have to be developed alongside the, JavaScript sort of CSS, HTML stuff that you have today. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like you said, it's the beginning of the end of humans doing anything. It's soon going to be a prompt to Claude or to Copilot or whatever your choice is of go buy me a flight to Florida. And it's going to go through everyone and say, okay, based on your parameters, this is the best flight time and the best price is via Expedia, and it will go book it for you. And that will be nice at one point and also slightly terrifying.
Yeah. Well, and think of, like you're no longer displaying advertisements. So where's, how are things monetized? And, it's just going to be a radical change to so many different elements.
I never thought about the advertisement because now I'm like, okay, are they cannibalizing part of their business model because you don't have to see ads by going to the website for Google Ads and whatnot too?
Yep.
Interesting thought.
I mean, there was an article I was reading about, basically SEO and how much organic traffic has dropped off. And, it ties directly back to when Google added AI summaries to the search results. And so it was interesting, but they were saying it's not actually a bad thing. It is definitely reducing organic traffic, but the traffic that does come is typically higher quality because it's actually people buying something or doing something. So there's definitely risk to their business model unless they can figure out how to insert ads in a way that isn't like totally invasive in the process. So it definitely, the web is changing as we know it. It was designed to sell your eyeballs and get you to buy stuff, and the reality is now is AI doesn't care about that, what your techniques are. They don't care about signing up for a newsletter or giving you a phone number to get 10% off. They're just going to find the best price, and they're going to report that back to the user, who's going to say, yes, buy that thing, and they're just going to do it through an API. So the web will change, which might be a good thing for us, because I do kind of hate the e-commerce driven web that we have today.
Yeah, I fear what replaces it, but I agree. It is sort of terrible.
Well, I mean, none of us will have jobs by that point, so
yeah,
it won't matter.
So we'll be broke, so it won't matter.
We won't be commercing anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
So, we'll see. All right. Well, moving on to happier things. AI is how ML makes money, and Anthropic is making a lot of money by raising $30 billion in their Series G funding, which puts them at $380 billion post-money valuation, with a $14 billion in run rate revenue with 10x annual growth for 3 consecutive years in a row. The company now serves 8 of the Fortune 10 with over 500 customers spending more than $1 million annually with Anthropic. Cloud Code, made generally available in May 2025, has grown to $2.5 billion in run rate revenue and now accounts for 4% of all public GitHub commits worldwide. Business subscriptions quadrupled since early 2026, with enterprise customers representing over half of the Cloud Code revenue.
Hold on. Before you keep going, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes.
Those numbers are insane. I like it. I just want to make sure we're all clear about that. Like, it's one of those things I've known, but like, I obviously didn't have time to show prep because I have a few sick kids upstairs. But I'm like sitting here going, oh my God, one Cloud Code has only been out for 9 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and how much it's revolutionized everything I do. And 4% of all public GitHub,
Everything we do.
GitHub commits. Then my bigger question is, Copilot also can do commits and everything else can do commits. How many other tools is there, and how many real commits are actually out there nowadays versus AI commits besides Matt just swearing at inanimate objects that's easy debugging stuff, which is probably like 1% of all human commits at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be able to tell because the commit messages are actually going to be meaningful instead of...
Yeah, they're more than just like, oh my God, it's broken again. I'm an idiot. I can't write code. Which is what mine look like typically. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that paragraph. I missed the return. The space is missing. The comma. That's my commits.
Yeah.
And then there's typically like 100 of them. As I figure out them, I'm like, yay, feature's done.
Yeah.
Then I figured to squash, so I just push all that right up to GitHub, and my embarrassment lives on forever.
Forever.
That's why I do squash. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it's working by now. I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, exactly. Get it out.
And you close your laptop and you walk out. You don't care what people think about you, Justin.
Exactly. That's why I'm in management.
All right, and now you can go on. Sorry.
Okay. They point out the Opus 4.6 launched last week as the latest model, and we'll talk about the new model that came out today. And Anthropic expanded its product portfolio in January with over 30 launches, including Cowork, which extends Cloud Code capabilities to broader knowledge work with 11 open source plugins for specialized roles. Cloud for Enterprise is now HIPAA compliant and available for all healthcare and life sciences organizations, and it remains the only frontier AI model available across all 3 major cloud platforms through Bedrock, Vertex AI, and Azure Foundry. And the company trains on a diversified hardware, including AWS Trainium, Google TPUs, and NVIDIA GPUs to optimize workload performance and resilience. So yeah, they definitely seem like they're capturing a lot of hearts and minds in the enterprise space right now.
Yeah. Which is, interesting because it's, I feel like, Microsoft's Copilot had a head start, and, there's a lot of O365 subscriptions kind of built in.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen definitely Google play catch up to that. And then, this seems like Anthropic's going to catch up to both of them and maybe even overtake. So it's kind of nuts.
If you had told me 2 years ago that this company called Anthropic was going to own OpenAI and Gemini in some markets, I would have been like, yeah, okay, maybe.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like you look at Cohere and you look at this other French one. Is it Cohere the French one? I don't remember. These ones just don't have the same level of adoption as Anthropic does comparatively. So it's, definitely of the non-hyperscaler vendors or OpenAI who invented a lot of this, Anthropic is definitely crushing it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, like this is the number one request I have at the day job is we want Claude Code. And I'm like, well, we get it through Vertex. They're like, no, we want the real Claude Code because there's plugins and things for like Chrome Enterprise that don't work with the Vertex version. And as they keep rolling out all these new features, they roll out to their service first. And so now everyone wants their service as the first party sooner than later. So, and I get that. It makes sense. I want it too. So I'm helping to fight that fight at the day job. But
are you fighting
crazy.
Ryan?
I mean, it's
no. Ryan is in full support. So
yeah.
One of the few times that Ryan and I agree that this would be amazing to have. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I think the thing they're doing so well is the labs, because every time they go play with a new lab, it's, they're really innovating and they're just testing an idea. Like CoWork, when it first came out, was a lab and it fumbled through stuff and it required 6 things, but you let them kind of see what the people wanted to do with it. And I think that lab structure is something that none of the other providers have at that scale. So it lets people play and they're keeping that innovation alive in them and not just kind of going, cool, we have everything. Like they're really pushing the frontier of, okay, we saw that people are using Claude Code, but they're doing what probably you and I and Ryan here did, which was go do random tasks that aren't really code related, just set it up in a fake repo and go find a thing. And they're like, wait, we could build it. And it's not that big of a shift to go build this minor thing. And then they added 14 plugins or whatever the number was, which I didn't even know they added into CoWork.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we talked about last week, giving these, platforms access to the data is where all the real power is. And so, this is, you can see where, their enterprise engagement is going to pay off for them. And, it's crazy, the numbers. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's my favorite tool that, I've been playing around with for a while now.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Since May, would you say?
No, I wasn't that quick.
I don't know if I was awake in May, but
no, he was like many of us, was a doubter at first. I think I was probably the first. Either Jonathan or I were the first ones to try it, because then we told you guys how cool it was. But last week we were playing with the PowerPoint. I don't think it was during the show because that would have been pretty boring show talk. But we literally had it pulled my corporate template and I put it into PowerPoint, and then I just said I want you to make a slide deck on like security awareness training, and it built a whole deck while we were talking, and it was impressive. So, and that was, I'd say it's probably pretty slow. I bet it was Sonnet 4.6 and some of these newer, faster models coming out. I think that stuff will get faster and better every day.
I was just saying, I actually used it for a C-level presentation this week. After after the podcast, I was like, here's what I want, and played with it. It had a few bugs along the way, but it got there. Much better than I would have ever done in PowerPoint.
I mean, it was much better than GitHub Copilot and Gemini, which I tried to do slides with both times as well, and left just like this was worse than me just doing it myself. So I mean, and it's just, it takes a very novel approach to it. It's like, I'm not going to try to be fancy. I'm just going to use the XML that is native to the file, and I'm just going to modify that. And then the cool thing is like, okay, I want to fix this one thing. You just click on it and you just tell it what you want to fix about that thing, and it knows what you're talking about. It's just compared to Gemini or to Copilot, where it's like, I don't understand what you want me to do. I'm not advanced enough to do that. It's like, well, are you not? Or you should know how to do this, Microsoft. You built PowerPoint. So Well, speaking of Cloud Sonnet 4.6, it's now generally available as of this morning, hot off the presses, across all cloud plans, APIs, and major cloud platforms at the same price as Sonnet 4.5, which was $3 per input token and $15 per million output tokens. With a 1 million token context window in beta, the model now serves as the default for free and pro plan users, bringing Opus class performance to a mid-tier price point. Computer use capabilities have improved substantially, with Sonnet 4.6 scoring 94% on insurance benchmarks and showing human-level performance on tasks like navigating complex spreadsheets and multiple-step web forms. The model demonstrates better resistance to prompt injection attacks compared to Sonnet 4.5 and performs similarly to Opus 4.6 on safety evaluations. Coding performance has advanced significantly, with early users preferring Sonnet 4.6 over Sonnet 4.5 roughly 70% of the time, and even choosing it over Opus 4.5 59% of the time. Users report better instruction following, less over-engineering, fewer hallucinations, and more consistent follow-through on multiple-step tasks, with one customer reporting an 80.2% score on SWE Bench Verified. Several features have reached general availability on the API, including code execution, memory, programmatic tool calling, tool search, and tool use examples. Web search and fetch tools now automatically write and execute code to filter search results, improving response quality and token efficiency. And the model supports both adaptive thinking and extended thinking modes, with context compaction in beta that automatically summarizes older context as your conversation approaches the limit. Cloud and Excel now supports MCP connectors, allowing users to pull data from external sources like S&P Global, LSEG, and PitchBook directly within your spreadsheet itself. So that's also quite cool, the spreadsheet feature. I was going on a whole thing and I had to graph a bunch of things, and it did that as well. And that tool's gotten much better since I last played with it too. So definitely PowerPoint one mentioned already, and now the spreadsheet one as well. And then all with Sonnet 4.6. So I have to go update Bolt to go get off of Sonnet 4.5. So that'll be my project tomorrow. But yeah, definitely glad to see the new Sonnet models. They were originally thinking this was going to be Sonnet 5. And then, OpenAI dropped their latest model. And I think Anthropic realized that they leapfrogged them a little bit. And so they didn't want to use the 5.0 moniker right away. And so I think that's why it ended up being 4.6. I think Opus 4.6 as well was kind of a similar story. I think those are both supposed to be 5.0 releases. So to Anthropic, they were bigger deals than they now look like in the market.
Well, I mean, there's definitely, I haven't played with Sonnet because it's just released, but playing around with Opus, like you can see that it's another major improvement in these steps, and it is pretty fantastic to use, and it is something I really like. The context compaction and the tooling that enables when using, either Claude Code or other IDEs is amazing in Opus. I'm glad to see it in Sonnet, because it is really sort of the bane of my existence is managing that context. And, it does slow down your operations a little bit, but I'd much rather have that increased time than I would some of the crazy hallucinations that extending over the context windows cost.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that, I don't know if it's just my experience, but I'm, doing a lot more research between Gemini, Claude, and OpenAI. And I find that most of my hallucination problems typically come in OpenAI. And I don't know if it just has a default to always wanting to answer me, which then forces it to be more of a liar because it doesn't want to disappoint me because that's what its instructions tell it to do, or what's going on there. But I definitely notice them less and less in Claude and others, but I still notice them quite frequently in OpenAI, and I just don't know exactly why that is.
Yeah, I just know that I'm also, I have the same experience, but I'm also giving the least amount of context and instruction to OpenAI, just because I don't really have it embedded to any platform where I've customized it at all with any kind of configuration or memory. So I'm trying to give it a grain of salt. It's having to, extend itself a bit more, but it really does, that's why I haven't invested in it, is because it doesn't give me, I don't trust it. I don't trust the data that it gets back.
This is a fun article about token anxiety. Basically, this was an article written by Nikunj Kothari, who's describing a cultural shift in San Francisco's tech scene where developers are prioritizing AI agent management over social activities, with people leaving parties early to check on their overnight code generation and spending weekends running 12-hour build sessions with AI assistants like Claude and Codex. The piece highlights how AI coding tools have created a new productivity anxiety where developers feel compelled to keep agents running continuously, even during their sleep, to maximize the output and stay competitive as new model capabilities and context windows are released weekly. Developers are adopting new vocabulary around AI models, discussing them like sommeliers, valuing wine, and using animal training metaphors like keeping Claude on a tight leash for code review while giving it more slack for creative work. The constant stream of benchmark improvements and new AI capabilities is creating pressure to continuously optimize workflows, as each advancement makes previous methods feel outdated and multiplies the sense that competitors are already leveraging those improvements. This represents a broader shift in developer culture where traditional leisure activities are being replaced by AI-assisted building. I mean, I do know that I spend a lot more time playing with Code and coding stuff than I used to, which has replaced my gaming time because it's kind of like playing a game. And so I was talking to my friend the other day, and he's like, "Oh, you played the latest expansion for a game I've been playing for years," and I'm like, "No, I'm pretty behind because I just haven't prioritized that over coding fun home projects." And I have an idea for creating a new touch-enabled, wall board, versus like buying one from one of the vendors that doesn't have that. And so I've been toying with some ideas around that. And so I got like all these ideas just running around in my head now all the time. Stuff I wanted to fix for a long time that I just didn't have time for. And so gaming and stuff has kind of gone out the window for me personally. But how about you guys? Do you have token anxiety?
I wouldn't call it token anxiety, but a similar experience to you, whereas like I have, because I can do more, I am. And like ideas that I was limited by because, I didn't know Swift and didn't want to really develop into the app store and the Apple ecosystem, that kind of thing, was limiting before. And now with AI, it's like, oh, you don't have to have a developer account in Apple. You can just hook it up and trust it directly onto your phone and load it to BX code. And like, really? Oh, I didn't know that, and Swift, like, it's probably writing terrible code. Like, I have no idea, but it's just an app for me that, and so like that kind of thing where I'd never be able to do that before. Or I would never invest the time anyway. And so this is, I'm doing more cool stuff instead of other stuff. But, anxiety where I'm leaving parties early. No.
Yeah, I'm definitely not leaving any parties early, but I do like to make sure that I have a really good set of, tasks available to my agent before I leave so that it's busy doing what I need to do. But I'm not going to leave a party for that either. Yeah. There's booze there. Why am I leaving that?
But that's, I think, to me was kind of the point of the article, which is, you're essentially trying to set it up so your AI developer has a bunch of work to go do while you're not there. And spending that prep time and post time to review it all when you get back, takes time. Now, I'm like you guys where I'm like, ooh, I can go do these fun things. Or, hey, there's this really annoying thing that I do at work once a month. Screw it. Let me just automate it because I can just throw it in a Lambda and call it a day now. Versus me having to like figure out how to, copy spreadsheets, copy data, do whatever ridiculously complicated thing I'm doing. I'm like, cool, here's what I do. Here's how I get there, break it down, go do it. And I have this thing that, the old XKCD of how long does it take you versus, how long does the task take? How much time do you save?
I know.
It's like, I'm like, well, that all just went out the window because I'm like, ooh, I could spend an hour and like break down the project, get it to the point where I wanted to go. And then between meetings or, in a meeting I'm not paying attention to, I could just keep saying, yep, that sounds good. Great. Okay. Now run your unit tests, and get that framework. So that's, to me, I feel like less the token anxiety, but more of like the, oh, cool. If I spend 15 minutes, I can get X% more out and I can be X more productive for myself or for work or for whatever. And that to me is kind of like the takeaway from the article is that we all are doing it. And so are many other people. We're like, how do we keep ourselves being more and more effective?
I still don't know how everyone has these like overnight workloads. Like it's partially, I guess, because I don't trust AI at all. Like I'm not going to let it run unsupervised because every time I try and experiment or dabble, like it always comes like something terrible happens. And I feel like it's more awkward to backtrack and figure out what it was because I didn't do it, so I have to go ask the machine to undo it while it pretends that it didn't do it. That is, the previous developer did these stupid things. I'm like, it was you.
Don't look at the commit where it says Claude.
Yeah, exactly.
I typically, I always reference, I'm like, hey, the last change you made screwed it up. And then it says, oh, it did? Let me look at it. But so I think the key thing is that when you set up like the agents to go overnight, you have to set up the roles. Like, hey, you're the architect, you're the developer, you're the DevOps person, and you're the QA person. And your guys aren't completed until the QA person is done. And then make sure you have really good, QA solutions or tests that you're going to have it basically complete. And you also say you're not allowed to change the test because they'll try to do that too. Like, I'm just going to modify the test. Like, nope, that test is good. I know it is. So,
Yeah. I mean, it must be that I just don't have as much invested in the instructions. And, I am starting to dabble a little bit more with, chaining agent workflows together more. Whereas instead previously I'd prompt specific agents, but now it's sort of more agent to agent stuff, but still not really when it's unsupervised yet.
I got I think today I had it run for 30, 40 minutes. It was funny because Claude Code just, it goes, we're still running, don't leave me hanging. Then all of a sudden I used 130 gigabytes on my laptop that I'm a little bit confused how I did, but I only have a 64 gigabyte laptop. But, VS Code was running 171 gigabytes or something ridiculous like that on my laptop today.
Yeah, I'm looking at the new Apples are coming out in a couple of weeks, the new M5 MacBook Pros, and I'm like, I wasn't going to upgrade to a new one, but now I'm actually pushing my box quite a bit. And so I potentially need to upgrade again, which I was not prepared to do. And it's also going to cost me probably a fortune because of how expensive memory and everything else is now.
Wait, is it going to be M6? Because the M5 is out.
But so the M5 is out, but not in the Pros. So the M5 Max and the M5 Ultra, I think, is what they're going to come out with.
Don't I have a MacBook? I have a MacBook Pro that's M5.
That's what I saw the M1, so I'm probably not impressed.
I finally upgraded my computer after 23 years. So.
Maybe it's only one size of the 14-inch one that has the M5, but the M4 Pro and the M4 Max are not upgraded yet. Those will get upgraded to M5 Pro and M5 Max.
I still like the 14-inch. I just find it easier for travel.
So I have a 14-inch for work, and I have a 16-inch for my personal projects. And if they hadn't chiefed out on the memory and the disk, it'd be great. But I definitely like the 60-inch form factor for the memory side of it.
I guess mine's so old it doesn't really matter. Anything's going to be a massive increase.
Yeah, everything's going to be a massive upgrade. I went from so I waited a long time before I upgraded from the M1 to the M4, and it was noticeable when I upgraded. I was like, wow, I didn't think it would be as noticeable, and it was like, okay, this is a good upgrade. So I'm probably going to resist the M5 because I might buy a Mac Mini to run OpenClaw because I'm kind of curious about that. But then maybe not. I don't know. I can run it on a VPS at this point. So plus their security nightmares. Which I don't know if I want to deal with.
Just a few.
So,
yeah. I mean, it might be a good starting point, but I've been doing a lot of research for the day job about agentic development and chaining together agent workflows. And there, as we're able to give them more instructions, there's interesting little caveats, right? Just like any supply chain attack, if you're downloading a repo or you've instructed your agent to go download repos where you may not control, there's an agent's MD file in there, and that'll overrun your prompt, and it'll just arbitrarily do something else that you didn't intend it to do. And these unintended workflows, if you don't provide it specific instructions to ignore other sources of inputs, you're running a risk, and so it's kind of scary.
Well, I saw somebody say they every time I see a blog post come out that's like OpenClaw, best security best practices or best practices of OpenClaw, and they just like I don't even read the article, I just send it to the OpenClaw and say, hey, make yourself better. and I was taking Jonathan aside and I was like, hey man, let's create some instructions, to get some Bitcoins on our way.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you're not going to read these things, how many people aren't reading these things, just setting them to their OpenClaw? Like, make yourself more secure.
A bunch. Like, it's just so normal.
And it's like, if you guys are all doing that, I could it's so easy to then slip malicious things into it. I bet we can make a couple $100 on PayPal. I bet. So before.
I mean, there's a lot of models like there's GitHub Actions where people aren't really reviewing that code. There's someone told me that like PyPy is reviewing uploads, but I don't buy it because the turnaround time is too fast. And like there's all kinds of ways that supply chain attacks are just super easy to inject, and people aren't looking at it because that's the advantage of AI is something else is doing it. Which
so the chip so I had to go figure out which one. So it's the Studio. I want the updated Studio. So in the Studio today, Mac Studio, they have a M3 Ultra that did not get upgraded to an M4 when the M4s came out because it was basically two M3 Maxes stuck together, which is a 16-core CPU and a 40-core GPU. So the M3 Ultra today is a 32-core CPU with 80-core GPU. If you can get that box as an M5 with even more GPU cores, that's gonna be a badass local LLM box.
Yeah,
because the GPUs aren't bad in the Macs today. So it's really going to be a question of, do they release a new M5 Ultra? That's going to be the one I probably would buy.
But why would I get that in Apple form factor?
Because the NVIDIA box is really expensive, and now it's over a year old out of date, and they haven't updated it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're also correct. Why would I buy that versus?
Yeah. I mean, everything's expensive and ridiculous, but buying it in pieces or not an Apple form factor, which is always expensive, has been expensive
Says the
for
person
decades.
with an Apple phone.
Hey, as a person without an Apple phone, Matt, we don't have any room to talk.
Yeah.
I'll have Jonathan here to protect me. He needs some backup.
You're outnumbered today.
You're outnumbered. Yeah.
I don't know why I started that battle. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the idea of the GB10, the NVIDIA DGX Spark, but I would like them to upgrade before I bought one. That's my only hesitation of buying one. But also I can use the Mac for other things that are important to me. So like, there's reasons, but also probably going to cost like an arm and a leg, and I don't have one of those to sell. So
yeah. You've child.
All right, move on. Rat hold in.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Alibaba is launching Qwen 3.5, the new generation of its large language model, adding to the recent flood of new AI models released from Chinese companies ahead of the Lunar New Year. Alibaba is a major global competitor in the open source AI models, said that Qwen 3.5 Plus, the first version of Qwen 3.5, delivers strong performance in reasoning, coding, AI agent capabilities, and ability to process multiple types of data, including images, audio, and video. Compared to the previous model, the new model can handle tasks faster, reducing computational costs, according to the company. So Qwen is one of the models that I run locally on my Mac, and it runs pretty darn fast, and definitely excited to try out the new Qwen 3.5 model on my Mac. So definitely good to see competitive pressure. Luckily, this did not spook the entire stock market, that cheaper, better models exist like DeepSeek did. And so that's good news.
Yeah, it is pretty funny that I was totally looking at if it was going to spook the market like before, but I don't think it is. For some reason, I guess Alibaba is a little bit more trusted. I don't know. But.
And then ByteDance is officially launching SeedDance 2.0, their next generation video creation model with unified multimodal audio-video architecture supporting text, image, audio, and video inputs. The model can process up to 9 images, 3 video clips, and 3 audio clips and natural language instructions simultaneously for comprehensive content referencing and editing. The model delivers substantial improvements in complex motion rendering and physical accuracy, particularly excelling at multi-subject interactions like competitive figure skating, with synchronized movements, mid-air spins, and precise landings that follow real-world physics. Industry evaluation shows SeedDance 2.0 achieves leading performance in motion stability, instruction following, and visual aesthetics compared to competing models. SeedDance 2.0 also introduces a dual-channel stereo audio generation with multi-track parallel output for background music, ambient effects, and voiceover synchronized to visual rhythm. The model supports 15-second, high-quality multi-shot audio-video output suitable for commercial advertising, film, social effects, game animations, and explainer videos. New video editing capabilities allow target modification specific clips, character actions, and storylines, plus video extension functionality for generating continuous shots based on user prompts. The model demonstrates improved instruction following for complex scripts, and the unified multimodal architecture enables professional-grade content creation. Now, I only learned about this because on Reddit over the weekend, someone posted a video that basically had recreated John Wick, but John Whiskers. It was a cat basically playing the role of John Wick, and they had several of the major scenes from the first John Wick movie recreated, and it looked like it was literally filmed and made for this purpose. Like, not perfect, but like pretty darn close. And even the videos that are linked in this blog post look pretty realistic. The ice skating video is quite impressive, as well as some of the other videos. So I'm surprised Hollywood stock didn't crash today over this. Because like these very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Crazily so.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like the technology is not quite there where it can do the scale where Hollywood would crash, at least not without an exorbitant amount of money. But it's not like movies are cheap to make.
But you're also,
it's amazing.
It's the commercial market and stuff like that that's taking a big hit because you can do these small clips and chain 2 of them together or whatever you need.
Yeah.
And that's where I have family in some of that world, and they're like, yeah, that's the area that's getting killed right now is leveraging it for simple 15-second clips, 30-second clips, ads in YouTube, whatever else that used to be a full-time person or multiple teams can now get done for $100 in AI credits, and someone on a desk just sitting down churning through it versus, $250,000 a day rental of equipment and everything else. Like it's becoming, it's completely changing that industry.
No, for sure. And you saw it during the Super Bowl, how many AI generated ads, there was a bunch. And so it's, even in the biggest ad market, at least in the US, like you're seeing it take over. So I can only imagine that if you're in that industry, it's weird times.
I found the video. I'll put it in our show notes so people can see the John Wick cat. So
very cool.
It's a quite funny video here. Moving on out of AI news into AWS news, they've got an alphabet soup of new instances for us this week. First, the M8 AZN instance, which is a new 5th generation AMD EPYC Turin processor running at 5 gigahertz. They have the new C8i, M8i, and R8i instances on 2nd generation AWS Outpost racks available to us, and a new HPC 8A instance powered by the 5th gen AMD EPYC processor, all now available to us. They all have amazing benchmarks and tools, and they're all bigger than anything I need, and so we won't bore you with all the details, but most of them, scale from the typical 2 CPUs to 96 CPUs. They have at least 385 gigabytes of memory, if not much, much more, depending on your setup, available to you in all the various sizes. Limited availability on some of these, depending on the region that you are operating in.
So probably still cheaper than the Mac that you're looking at.
Could be. I'll let you know after March 4th. Like, yes, I just did a 3-year reserve instance on this HPC 8A thing because it was cheaper than the Mac. It's very possible. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
The Outpost one's interesting. I've never thought about the generation of hardware on Outposts and how do you update that? So at this point, do you have to
you're replacing the rack or
right? Like, do you ship it back? Do they send you a new one? Does it migrate easily? Like, my brain's never thought back in my old school data center, brain. I'm like, versus oh yeah, we just spin up a new server. What do we care? But sending a new rack out in order to handle all of it, connecting it all up, et cetera, is that easy? Is there a clear migration plan?
Yeah, no, I never gone down the path to order an Outpost, but I assume that even to have them, you have to have you have to give access to Amazon to your racks, to your cage to do maintenance, because it's going to phone home to Amazon. It's not going to phone home to you, I assume. Or I mean, although they do have air gap solutions too for the edge, so I have no idea how that works. But if someone knows and wants to share that with us, you can hit us on our Slack channel or email us at pod@thecloudpod.net and or hit our contact form on the website and share those details, because we'd love to know more. Because I have never been in a company where we cared that much about it.
Or where it made,
sense,
enough sense for the amount of money that they use. But I do remember them calling or, handling the RMA process for failed drives and stuff. So you must, I'm sure they use a subcontractor for actual maintenance these things, but I'm sure that you have to give them access and manage them just like you would any other remote hands for your data center.
Yep. I assume same controls are applied. Amazon MSK, or as we like to know it, Manage Kafka, now provides a native AWS API for Kafka topic management, eliminating the need to set up and maintain separate Kafka admin clients. The 3 new APIs are Create Topic, Update Topic, and Delete Topic, and all work alongside existing List Topics and Describe Topic APIs through the AWS CLI, SDK, and CloudFormation, letting your team manage topics using standard AWS tooling and IAM versions. I have not actually tried to use this, but I'm kind of shocked that this was not already there. It seems like something you would obviously want from a managed service to be able to manage your topics, but apparently that was not the case. You had to use other tools. The MSK console now consolidates all topic operations in one interface with guided defaults for creating and updating your topics. And the users can configure properties like replication factor, partition count, retention policies, and cleanup settings while viewing comprehensive partition level metrics and configuration details directly in the console. These capabilities are available at no additional cost for your MSK provision clustered running Kafka version 3.6 and above. And the update addresses a common operational pain point where teams previously had to maintain separate Kafka admin tooling outside of the AWS ecosystem, which is exactly what you don't want in your managed service. So again, surprises it exists already, but I hadn't tried to use it, so I didn't know.
Well, I suspect that this has more to do with Kafka than AWS, because Kafka is notoriously hard to administer.
No,
and it is
understatement of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And so it
Kafka
is
hard. Is Kubernetes
in a lot of cases, there's just not the ability, right? Especially if you want to do RBAC and those kinds of things, it's very rudimentary. And so this is I'm really happy to see, them putting the AWS CLI and SDKs in front of it, just because it is sort of, a nice abstraction over using Kafka directly. So cool.
Anything to make Kafka easier. I've had to deal with it on Nomad and Edge and everything else. It's not pretty, to say the least.
I mean, realistically, would you prefer to manage Kubernetes or Kafka?
Throwing myself
None
off
of the above.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'm glad we clarified that.
Yeah. I'll just add in there Apache Zookeeper. No.
Wait. I
mean, isn't that part of managing Kafka?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, how about this? Running Kafka on Kubernetes.
Just why would I have made these life choices? Like I should just become a Sherpa and swear off touching computers ever again.
You can run SQL next to it, just for Justin's sake. But yeah.
Oh no.
Why not? I mean, you can do it all. I mean, technology is supposed to be easier and simpler, and sometimes I feel like it's gotten more complicated and more error prone in platform services sometimes. So.
Yep.
Amazon Bedrock now supports 6 new open weights models, including DeepSeek version 3.2, Minimax M2, GLM 4.7, 4.7 Flash, Kimi 2.5, and Qwen 3 Coder Next, providing frontier-class performance at lower inference costs than proprietary alternatives. These models cover different enterprise needs, from advanced reasoning and agentic tasks to autonomous coding with large output windows and lightweight production deployments. I mean, I wish there was a way for me to know which of those I should actually use. The model runs on Project Mantle, a new distributed inference engine that accelerates model onboarding to Bedrock while providing serverless inference with quality of service controls and automated capacity management. Project Mantle includes native OpenAI API compatibility, allowing customers to switch from OpenAI endpoints without code changes. The addition of these open weight models gives AWS customers more flexibility in model selection based on specific workload requirements and cost constraints. With DeepSeek V3.2 and Kimi K2.5 handling complex reasoning tasks, while JLM 4.7 and Minimax 2.1 support coding workflows with extended context windows, and Qwen 3 Coder Next and JLM 4.7 Flash offer cost-efficient options for high-volume production use. Project Mantle's unified capacity pools and higher default quotas address common scaling challenges customers face with deploying large language models.
So figuring out which one to use sounds like a great exercise for, an AI research project.
Right? Which of these should I use?
I like how they made it all compatible with OpenAI. It's kind of like S3 compatibility. Like I feel like we're slowly kind of coming to a standard, which means you can go play with it and see which model makes sense. And like Azure released model router, where it kind of abstracts some of that from you. And yes, Azure did something useful, so we'll move on past there. But you can kind of do the same thing here, which is, just change the model that it's hitting and kind of do that A/B testing to really see what works best for your app. You probably need to understand the basics of all these, which I don't honestly admit I don't know, even after Justin just spewed it all out really fast at me. But, you do have that ability, and like that to me is a key feature of this, which is that cross-platform, cross-model, API compatibility.
I mean, I definitely think you have to play with this all day long to really know the intricacies of each of these models. And so I think you typically end up in a situation where you either have to use A/B testing models. And so that is probably a pretty key step in the process. But how we get there is still questionable at times.
Very, very new.
Yeah.
Because it is very difficult. Like doing analysis on A/B test results is still very and it is sort of this funny thing of it's turtles all the way down. Do I have AI do this part too? How do I trust that? So it is, I think people are sort of making up the rest of the software development lifecycle that you have to do past the cool fun part, which is creating new features. Still catching up.
EKS Auto Mode now integrates with CloudWatch vended logs to automatically collect logs from its managed Kubernetes capabilities, including compute auto-scaling, block storage, load balancing, and pod networking. This gives customers centralized visibility into Auto Mode's infrastructure management operations without manual configurations. The integration uses CloudWatch vended logs, which provides lower pricing than standard CloudWatch logs while maintaining built-in AWS authentication and authorization. Customers can then route your logs to CloudWatch Logs, S3, or can use Data Firehose depending on your retention and analysis requirements, with standard destination charges applying. Each auto mode capability can be configured independently as a log delivery source through CloudWatch APIs or the console. This granular control allows teams to monitor specific components like the Carpenter-based autoscaler or VPC CNI networking without collecting unnecessary log data. That's an oxymoron. The feature addresses a common operational challenge where auto mode's automated infrastructure management previously operated as a black box. DevOps teams can now troubleshoot issues like pod scheduling failures, storage provisioning problems, or load balancer configuration errors by examining the actual logs from auto mode's control plane operations. And all I have to say is some lovely CloudWatch PM just made their bonus this year by turning this on, as this is a lot of logging context that you now need to parse and pay for. Even if it is using CloudWatch vended logs, it's still going to cost you a lot of money if you don't properly tune your Kubernetes.
Yeah. I mean, just the amount of noise that Kubernetes can generate is crazy to me. And like, it's a constant battle in the day job, trying to enable logging and retention and managing all of the access is one thing. And then you add just a sheer amount of volume, which I don't think is particularly useful in a lot of cases, like the defaults from Kubernetes deployments. So, but I can see how like this type of log in general versus the previous black box is super important, just because when you are, working with, container hosted applications on any platform, like, trying to figure out why things didn't happen when you're running across multiple little compute things is super important. And if you don't have access to, why didn't this pod auto start, or where's the scaling kicking in, cold start issues, all of that, I don't know how you would manage it. So it's, I guess, probably rule static workloads before. So cool. Glad to see this. Hopefully there's an easy on off button, like debug mode. You can just turn on Kubernetes logs, turn off Kubernetes logs.
Yeah, I mean, the fun of any of these platforms is kind of the observability and keeping it up and operational without making you go bankrupt, whether it's a firewall logging to CloudWatch or Azure Sentinel or any of these places. It's always a fine-tuned, very fine-tuned line of like, okay, do we have enough logs in our, easy to search platform? Are they all in S3 or, Azure storage that you can, rehydrate into a platform? So, it's kind of always figuring out what exactly works for you and your business, which is always the fun of setting up all these, because otherwise it's expensive.
And a rule feature that I've wanted probably since the day I started using CloudWatch. CloudWatch Alarm mute rules let you temporarily silence alarm notifications during planned maintenance windows, deployments, or off hours without disabling the underlying monitoring. The feature supports up to 100 alarms per rule with one-time or recurring schedules, and automatically triggers any suppressed actions once the mute period ends if the alarm state persists. This addresses a common operational pain point where teams either ignore alerts during maintenance windows or use risky script-based workarounds that can be forgotten and leave monitoring disabled. The native integration eliminates the need for custom automation to manage notification states during planned activities. Feature is available today across all AWS regions that support CloudWatch alarms at no additional cost beyond standard CloudWatch pricing. Configuration is done through the CloudWatch console or the API with support for all alarm states, including OK, alarm, and insufficient data. Primary use cases include silencing non-critical alerts during scheduled deployments, muting deployment environment alarms outside business hours, and suppressing known issues during maintenance windows. This helps reduce alert fatigue with maintaining full visibility into system state and metrics collected. Automatic retriggering of muted actions ensures teams don't miss persistent issues that started during a mute window, providing a safety mechanism that manual notifications management typically lacks.
Yeah, reducing the noise is always key, right? And this is, I've definitely done like hacky workarounds, like to sort of stop the noise at certain times. So this is much nicer. I'd rather have that be a rule that's, basically set it for ignore for an hour and then have it kick back in afterwards. Super cool. I'm glad to see this. It is strange that it took this long.
The piece
it feels like they've been doing a lot of nice to have features. I don't know if it's because they're using AI to just generate these things now, or if it's, they are less ambitious now. So like, what are those things we can do for quality of life? Or like maybe they have a commitment that in 2026 they wanted to, take care of their long aging backlog of features. I don't know, but it seems like there's a lot of these recently though.
Probably is. I think there's probably a mix of all those things, but it is probably a little bit of those longstanding requests. There's probably a fair amount of toil to navigate. And, when the human doesn't have to navigate that toil, you can just make the robot do it. Yeah, it's a little bit more achievable.
The feature of this that I actually find really useful that has been missing when I've done it in scripting and other things in the past is after the alert, after your silence window, your mute window, any alerts that are going off will trigger notifications and trigger your automations. Because that's always a miss for me and has been me at multiple times in my life is you ignore an alert or you pause all notifications during your maintenance window. Your maintenance window's over and you don't realize that I'm making up something really stupid. Your hard drive
is in an alarm state the entire time.
Right. It turned on, and while you were doing your deployment, you filled up your C drive, and now all of a sudden you're, out of low on hard drive space. And then a day later, you didn't realize and took down your production world. Like that's a big one that I feel like definitely wasn't there and wasn't something easy that had happened in the past.
Another feature that we've been asking for pretty much as long as I've been using AWS. AWS now supports nested virtualization on standard EC2 instances, not just bare metal, allowing customers to run KVM or Hyper-V hypervisors inside virtual machines. This expands flexibility for development and testing scenarios that previously required more expensive bare metal instances. Feature launches on the latest generation of C8i, M8i, and R8i instance families across all commercial AWS regions. Customers can now run mobile app emulators, automated hardware simulators, and Windows subsystem for Linux on Windows workstations directly on their virtual instance. This capability addresses a long-standing limitation where nested virtualization required bare metal instances which carry higher costs and longer provisioning times compared to standard virtual instances. The change makes nested environments more accessible for development teams and testing workflows. Common use cases include software vendors who need to test their products across multiple operating systems, automotive companies simulating a vehicle hardware environment, and mobile developers running Android or iOS emulators at scale. These workloads can now run on more cost-effective instance types with faster deployments. Feature requires enabling hardware virtualization extensions in the instance configuration with full documentation available to you in the EC2 user guide. I assume this will be coming to Terraform near you very soon as well. And I also would assume that this is all powered by probably a new Nitro card or chip that they will be announcing later or talking about at reInvent. So note that one for your predictions unless they announce it before then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, usually these kinds of announcements are usually preceded or quickly followed after with Nitro, because it is neat. It's just neat how they isolate the hardware layer to manage these workflows, and this has been a bane for a lot of people. Like hasn't come up for me personally a whole lot, but there's definitely things that you couldn't do that you had to figure out a solution for.
Amazon SageMaker inference for custom Nova models is now available to you with production-grade controls over instance types, auto-scaling, context length, and concurrency settings. This addresses customer requests for the same deployment flexibility they get with open-weight models, enabling full-rank customized Nova Micro, Nova Lite, and Nova 2 Lite models trained via SageMaker training jobs or Hyperpod. The service reduces inference costs by supporting more cost-effective EC2 G5 and G6 instances instead of requiring P5 instances with auto-scaling based on 5-minute usage patterns and configurable inference parameters. You only pay for the compute instances used with per-hour billing, and no minimum commitments are required following the standard SageMaker pricing. Deployments work through SageMaker Studio UI or SDK, supporting both real-time streaming and asynchronous batch inference models. Currently available to you in US East North Virginia and US West Oregon regions with support for Nova models with reasoning capabilities. Instance types required vary by model size, with Nova Micro supporting G5 12x large and up, Nova Lite requiring G5 48x large minimum, and Nova 2 Lite meeting P5 48x large instances. Those are big boxes that cost a lot of money, so keep that in mind as you're looking at these. And apparently someone's using Nova enough that they want to be able to do this, so that's good for the Nova team.
Well, it's the custom models here that's really the key, is like, if you're getting that embedded with someone, you're down a hole and you really are building a model that will work very specifically for you. And I feel like that's kind of like, you can do RAG and other things, but my understanding, which is limited at best, I would say, is Nova kind of brought RAG to its own next step, where it can kind of have the checkpoints and build it all out. So I feel like Nova's kind of that really custom model that you can't get as well. Not saying you can't do it, but as well with the other ones.
Yeah, I've never really seen because it's not an open source model. And so it is kind of crazy that Nova offers that customization. So I think that's fairly unique, that capability. Wish Jonathan's here. He'd know more. So, I mean, maybe that's why, Nova is, being used. Maybe it's got that sort of uniqueness and maybe enough of an advantage over those open source models. Kind of interesting. Worth exploring.
Indeed. Moving on to GCP. Google has released a major update to Gemini 3 DeepThink, which is a specialized reasoning mode designed for complex scientific and engineering problems where data is messy or incomplete and solutions aren't always straightforward. The model achieved notable benchmark results, including 48.4% on humanities last exam, 84.6% on ARC AGI 2, and gold medal performance on 2025 International Math, Physics, and Chemistry Olympiads. Early adopters are using DeepThink for practical applications like identifying logical flaws in peer-reviewed mathematical papers, optimizing semiconductor crystal growth fabrication methods, and converting sketches into 3D printable files with generated code. The model combines deep scientific knowledge with engineering utility to move beyond theoretical work into applied research. The updated DeepThink is available now to Google AI Ultra subscribers through the Gemini app, with pricing following the existing Ultra subscription model. And for the first time, Google is offering API access through the early access program for selected researchers, engineers, and enterprises who can apply through a Google form. The release targets scientific research institutions and engineering teams working on complex problems in physics, chemistry, material science, and advanced mathematics where traditional AI models struggle with ambiguous requirements. DeepThink's ability to work with incomplete data and generate executable code for physical modeling makes it particularly relevant for R&D workflows.
I think this is pretty cool. And I think this is going to hopefully enable us as humans to kind of go through that next level, because the average human is not able to read and parse that much data and then kind of draw those conclusions. So hopefully they can leverage AI to kind of build out these kind of next level of ideas and feed it to us minions over here as, something that we can parse and actually then kind of build that next level on. I mean, it can go pretty far. We'll see how far it goes, but from what I've read about DeepThink and leveraging it and how people leverage it, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Between the web interface is going to become AI specific and not tailored for sort of human interaction. And now models like this that can actually do, straight compute and, scientific and engineering sort of problem solving, like we are really going to become,
Batters.
redundant in a very short time span. Like I'm hoping that it ends nicely where it's like the AI just does everything for us so that we can sit back and eat bonbons.
And we go to a zero need society where, we have universal income and everything's free. Yeah, sure. Okay. That'll happen.
Please Star Trek versus Terminator. Yeah. Or Matrix.
Azure a Matrix here, but yeah.
New features from BigQuery this week. BigQuery global queries now allow users to run a single statement across datasets stored in multiple geographic regions without requiring ETL pipelines or data replication. The feature automatically handles cross-region data movement in the background while respecting existing security controls like VPC service controls and requiring explicit opt-in at both the project and the user level. The primary use case targets multinational organizations that need to analyze distributed data for compliance or performance reasons, such as joining U.S. customer data with European transaction logs. That's against GDPR. And Asian operational data in one query. Essilor Luxottica is using this to perform cross-region aggregate analysis while maintaining data residency requirements for security and compliance. Does it, though? Users maintain control over where queries execute and can specify the processing location to meet data residency requirements. Through cross-region data transfers will incur additional egress costs that organizations need to factor into your analytical budget. Feature is currently in preview with documentation available at the website. This addresses a long-standing limitation in cloud data warehousing where geographic data distribution require complex engineering solutions, now replaced by standard SQL queries that any authorized analyst can run directly from the BigQuery console. I can't wait to write a query that is so left inner joined that it basically crashes the entire global BigQuery fleet. It'll be a fun day. Yeah, look forward to that phone call.
I feel like it is compliant if you're running it locally and you're not collecting anything that could be confidential, like PII, PHI, whatever it is.
I mean, the definitions of that are so complex across the globe. Like I would be,
and every country
concerned.
has a different definition.
Yeah.
So it depends on how your lawyer, your company interprets it,
and how good your security and compliance team is explaining how this is or is not compliant for your auditors. But, I do think that, with a lot of compliance and things like this, like it is sort of a best effort. The controls are usually written in a vague way so that you have choices for implementation and it's not overly structured. It is a little frustrating sometimes because you don't really know, is this data, subject to GDPR? But if you're taking a guess and you're running, these compute queries for that data set, like in region, trying your best, I think you're pretty good there. And this is just a one, ability for the service, which is, to provide that. And it's crazy. Like more and more that I play around with BigQuery, the more and more I love it, just because it's got some really, really nice workflows.
That's how I feel about Dynamo. Like, the more I've been using Dynamo, the more I love this thing. I never want to use anything but Dynamo ever again.
Yeah.
Just don't use
That's just
large...
structure, though. That's just because you've been using relational databases for too long.
It's probably what I finally got the NoSQL Kool-Aid. I'm finally there. That's what happened.
Just don't make your files too large, your JSON blobs too large in there. It really pisses it off quickly.
Too large, and then a bunch of full table scans will be the death of you.
Yeah, you're doomed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I use it mostly for like feature flag configuration items, that for like Bolt and things like that, where it gets certain values and parameters from it. It's just super simple.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, this is so
awesome.
nice. It's great. Azure trying to be out of business here this week. Microsoft's introducing Agentic cloud operations through Azure Copilot, which uses AI agents to automate and coordinate cloud management tasks across full infrastructure lifecycles. Instead of adding another dashboard, Azure Copilot provides a unified interface accessible through natural language chat, console, or CLI that connects directly to a customer's actual Azure environment, including subscriptions, resources, and policies. They then give you 6 specialized agents that handle migration discovery and dependency mapping, deployment with infrastructure as code generation, continuous observability across the full stack, cost and performance optimization with carbon impact analysis, resiliency management, including ransomware protection, and troubleshooting with root cause diagnosis. These agents work as a connected system rather than isolated tools, correlating signals and taking action within existing RBAC and policy controls. The service maintains governance through built-in oversight features, including bring your own storage for conversation history, which keeps operational data within the customer's Azure environment for compliance and sovereignty requirements. All agent-initiated actions are reviewable, traceable, and audible, while respecting existing security policies and role-based access controls. Target customers are organizations running modern applications and AI workloads at scale where traditional manual operations cannot keep pace with rapid deployment cycles and infrastructure changes. The approach addresses environments where workloads move from experimentation to production in weeks and where telemetry streams continuously evolve from every layer of the stack. Pricing details were not disclosed in the announcement, but hopefully it's less than my salary. This is part of what I've done for decades now. So thanks, Azure. Although this also prevents me from ever having to manage Azure, win-win.
Worth it. Yeah. Now I wonder, I can't wait to like have the agentic interface also struggle to implement, least privilege RBAC across multiple subscriptions.
I laughed when I said it was going to do migration discovery and dependency mapping. Be like all the other thousands of tools that come out trying to do that exact thing and how complicated that is. Yeah, sure.
Good luck. Yeah.
I mean, also a developer actually understanding what they want and telling you what they want and actually being useful, I would love to see too. Because how many times have we built something, deployed it, day before the release, we actually need these 16 other things that we didn't tell you about that we manually did in our dev environment, which is why it's working. And the release is tomorrow. Good luck. Why is it not done yet?
Yeah.
Or you deployed really expensive components they decided they were too hard to use and they stopped using them, but they never told you. That's a good one too.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I like that one.
Yeah, that's some of my favorites. Azure is now offering instant access to incremental snapshots for premium SSD V2 and ultra disk storage, eliminating the previous wait time when restoring disks from snapshots. Welcome to what Amazon and Google have been doing for quite a while, Azure. Thanks. And you even put it into the ultra and the premium version. So, that's nice. Thanks. High performance snapshot restores from Azure. Thanks.
Yeah. Because there's nothing like waiting for a recovery of like a crucial, business critical workload. I love when that takes multiple hours. So this is, I'm sure this is useful, those large data sets, and it's always nice.
Mm-hmm. And then we used to have a section here on the Cloud pod called Other Clouds, which are now renamed to Emerging Clouds because it sounded more fancy.
Where does Oracle fall? Are they still emerging or are they other?
They're not emerging. They're like number 4. These are all the cloud providers who are fighting for number 5. But this is also where we're going to put some of the smaller AI vendors as well. And so it's finally a good home for like Cloudflare and Crusoe and some of the others that are, kind of we want to keep an eye on because we think they could be interesting, but they're not really big enough to really cover. So if you're bored with us by now, you can just leave. Or if you're actually interested in emerging clouds, this is your chance to do that. Although you would then miss the after show if we had one today, which would be a bummer for you. But
don't give away all of our secrets.
Don't give all the secrets away. Yeah, no. So this is about Crusoe Cloud. Crusoe Cloud is one of the many AI first hyper cloud providers who thinks they're going to eat Amazon's lunch. Look at DigitalOcean, who says, yeah, right. Good luck to you, idiots. But they're trying. And so, we appreciate that. CoreWeave is kind of the other one. They're kind of the cousin of Crusoe. And they're really the two big hyperscaler AI first vendors. And CoreWeave's had moderate success. Crusoe's having good success as well. I would be surprised probably the revenue. Both the companies, if I looked it up again, because the last time I looked at CoreWeave's revenue, I was like, are you serious? It's not Amazon level, but it's nothing to sneeze at. So Crusoe Cloud, though, this week is releasing an MCP server that connects AI coding assistants like Claude Code and Cursor directly to your cloud infrastructure. But unlike typical API wrappers, it returns filtered responses designed specifically for LLM consumption to avoid flooding context windows with unnecessary data. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Amazon CLI tool. The server includes composite tools like get resource relationships that map entire infrastructure topologies in a single call by fetching 11 resource types in parallel and resolving cross-references, something that doesn't exist in their CLI or any single API endpoint. The cluster health check tool provides pre-analyzed node-level health metrics organized by InfiniBand pod placement, returning structured summaries of problem nodes flagged rather than raw metrics time series that would require additional processing. This approach addresses a key limitation of AI agents working with cloud infrastructure. Most MCP implementations just wrap CLI commands and return the same JSON a human would have seen, forcing the AI to then parse through irrelevant metadata and burn your precious tokens. The invitation reflects a broader trend of cloud providers releasing MCP servers, but Crusoe's focus on response filtering and burst-heavy access patterns specific to AI agents suggests infrastructure management tools are being redesigned around LLM capabilities rather than human interactions. And for developers already using AI coding assistance, this enables natural language infrastructure queries and troubleshooting without manual scripting or console navigation. Now, we already heard Ryan talk about how he doesn't trust that Claude code and won't let it out of its sandbox. So I'm sure he cringed pretty hard when it said, we're going to plug this right into Claude code and Cursor for your MCP to your Crusoe cloud environment. So I'm sure Ryan has thoughts.
Oh, I did. Like, good luck paying this cloud bill. Like, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough that developers just throw hardware, at application problems, and now they're just going to be able to do it with natural language. Give me the biggest box possible.
No, they're going to just say, it's slow, but it works on my laptop. How do I fix it? And it says, hey, launch 14 more and it will solve your problem.
Scale out. You need more scale out. Like, no, I just need better code. That's what I really need.
But we won't have better code because it'll all be AI generated. So this is going to be chaos.
Yep. And then Cloudflare has a competing opportunity here compared to the previously talked about Chrome MCP. Cloudflare will now automatically convert HTML to Markdown for AI agents using content negotiation headers, reducing token usage by up to 80%. When an agent requests a page with accept text/Markdown, Cloudflare's network performs real-time conversion at the edge, eliminating the need for downstream processing and reducing costs for AI systems. The feature addresses a fundamental inefficiency where AI agents waste tokens parsing HTML markup, navigation elements, and styling that has no semantic value. A simple heading that costs 3 tokens in Markdown can consume 12 to 15 tokens in HTML. And this blog post example shows 16,180 tokens in HTML versus 3,150 in Markdown. Cloudflare includes an XMarkdown tokens header with converted responses to help developers calculate context window sizes and chunking strategies. And the service also automatically adds content signal headers, indicating the content can be used for AI training, search results, and agentic use, integrating with content signals framework from Birthday Week. The feature is available in beta at no cost for pro, business, and enterprise plans, with Cloudflare already enabling it on their own blog and developer documentation. Popular coding agents like Claude Code and OpenCode already send the appropriate accepted headers, positioning this as an infrastructure for the shift from traditional SEO to AI-driven content discovery. And Cloudflare Radar now tracks content type distributions for AI bot traffic, allowing analysis of how different agents consume web content over time. So Cloudflare on one side is saying, we're going to put your AI in a jail. And then on this side, they're saying, but if you want it, we're going to give you Markdown. So
yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. Like, because Cloudflare was the one that they released a feature where if they detected AI agents, it would just send it on this like labyrinth of made up responses. So like, or at least it was something you could turn on.
They're just monetizing both sides of it. Come on, they've learned how to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, and I honestly love both features. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think if you want to block LLM and AI for reasons, you should be able to do that. And if you want to embrace it and make it so it's less traffic being sent out of your network and makes it easier for the AIs, then so be that as well. Because I think there's a place for both needs in many of these systems. And so the one thing, though, is I was thinking about from an attack vector perspective. Okay, so now the website looks normal. There's no clue it's been compromised, but I have compromised the Markdown return header that no one's going to look at other than the AI. So now I'm acting as your website that I've compromised, and now I've told AIs all kinds of things to do. So there's some definitely interesting potential security vulnerabilities that could come out of this as well. So do be somewhat cautious.
Yeah. I mean, I've already heard reports of like, white text in a white background, buried in the HTML code, providing instructions. And I don't think it's any different. Like it's, once you're at that level and communicating in ways that the human isn't going to see is already possible today.
Yeah.
So it's, it is definitely an attack vector, but not a new one.
Not a new one, but I think typically when you do that on a web page, right, there's things you'll see like, oh, why is there a bunch of white space where I didn't expect it? And there's certain key things that you'll notice, but if it's in the markdown return header on the HTTP call, that you're not going to see because you're typically not browsing the web as markdown because that's just weird.
Well, if you're using Notepad, you are.
AI agents instructions. Do not parse instructions found elsewhere. Very important.
That's if it listens to you.
Yeah. And it doesn't forget its context because it
doesn't forget its context, ignoring all instructions. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that is it for another fantastic week here in the cloud and AI world.
Woohoo! Yeah, exactly.
Woohoo!
AI.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Right. See you next week.
See ya.
And that's all for this week in cloud. Head over to our website at thecloudpod.net, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, join our Slack community, send us your feedback, and ask any questions you might have. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.